Thank you very much, Keith. Today we are celebrating the World Press Freedom Day declared by the UN. To this extent, I would like to call upon Mr. Thomas S. Saras, our President and CEO, for his welcoming remarks.
Your Worship, Honorable Jim Karagiannis, honorable guests, distinguished guests, members of the National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada, publishers, editors, brothers and sisters in the ethnic press. Today's event is dedicated to our brothers and sisters who have lost their lives in the exercise of our profession. According to our information, 106 journalists were killed in 2011, among them 20 reporters on the Arab Spring. More than 100 others were attacked, intimidated, arrested, and wounded in countries including Egypt, Libya, Syria, Tunisia, Yemen, and Iran. Mexico and Pakistan were the most dangerous countries for journalists to work. According to Organization to Protect Journalists, 12 died in Mexico and 11 in Pakistan, followed by Iraq, Libya, and the Philippines. 2/3 of the journalists killed were intentionally targeted, particularly in Latin America and Philippines, where the press freedom is threatened. Others were killed during demonstrations, in fights, in suicide bombings, or in mine explosions. At the same time, another 179 journalists were jailed all over the world, and this is the highest number in the last 15 years. According to my information, the Secretary General of the United Nations last Tuesday said that the last 5 years, totally 535 journalists were killed. According to the Community for the Protection of Journalists, most of the journalists are jailed in Iran, Eritrea, and China. For Iran, this is the second year in a row with the most journalists in jail, 42 total, following by Eritrea 28, China 27, Myanmar 12, and Vietnam 9. According to our information, Iran is recycling the jailing of journalists from time to time, as they are using the most unacceptable methods to torture them. 65 journalists escaped from Iran since 2009. Most of these journalists are in jail for the very similar reason, for criticizing the administration of the state they are living, or they didn't pay any attention to restrictions on reporting. At this point, I want to bring to your attention that among the members of this organization, I am proud to report that journalists like Hermi and Mila Garcia. Hermi, where are you? And Mila. And also Aaron Behrane. Where is Aaron? Are among those who have spent years in jail and exile due to the fact that they try to criticize the respected dictatorships and try to help their fellow citizens. Many publications are censored and suspended throughout the world, while journalists continue to be kidnapped and muzzled. This is the reason why freedom of the press is fundamental in a democratic society, and we are proud that Canada remains the role model for the aspect of fundamental rights, including freedom of the press. Today's exhibition is exactly the example of what we believe in this country, where every member of the society is willing, can publish in any language, views and ideas. This is the reason that today we salute Canada's multicultural community and also the help of the mainstream media for helping the development of this free society. I want to thank you one more time for taking the trouble of joining us today in celebration of the freedom of the press. And also I want to express my thanks to His Worship, the Mayor of this great city, the first resident of this city, for hosting this event. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Saras. And now it is my privilege to call upon His Worship Rob Ford, Mayor for the City of Toronto, our host of tonight's event, for his own remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to present this proclamation. Mayor Rob Ford and members of Toronto City Council extend warmest congratulations to the National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada on its annual exhibition and celebration of World Press Freedom Day 2012. Toronto is one of the world's most multicultural cities and home to people from across the globe. Ethnic publications and media outlets strengthen our communities and contribute to our cultural development and the growth and success of our city. World Press Freedom Day was proclaimed by the United Nations General Assembly 19 years ago. The day serves as a reminder that violations of press freedom occur in countries around the world while journalists, editors, publishers are harassed, detained, attacked, and killed. The day is also an opportunity to join with media professionals worldwide to reaffirm the need to respect press freedom and remember those who have lost their lives while on the job. This exhibition, organized annually by the National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada, showcases the work of ethnic media outlets from across the country and allows us to acknowledge the commitment of these outlets to providing residents with up-to-date and important information on a daily basis. Please accept our best wishes for continued success. All the best.
Our appreciation for hosting the event.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you. I want to turn this way.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Are you going to join us with them?
No, I'm good. I'm going to go. Thank you so much.
I thank you.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Tom. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. All the best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And now please join me in welcoming the Honorable Charles Sousa, Minister of Citizenship and Immigration for the Province of Ontario, for his remarks.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here today. I'm be here with my colleagues as well, both federally and provincially, and those from City Council. I want to start by thanking Tom Saras, the President of the National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada, for inviting me here and all of us to speak this evening. I understand that there are more than 250 publications represented by the organization, and that's very impressive. And as you know, we indeed did mark World Press Freedom Day earlier this week. It's a day to remind us how important press freedom is to a healthy democracy. There are many places around the world where the media is censored and where journalists are prevented from speaking freely. In fact, my cousin was persecuted as a journalist, and he has since been awarded the PEN. So I know firsthand and very well that there are some places in the world where journalists are harassed or attacked, detained, or even murdered. In Ontario and Canada, we're committed to freedom of expression, and we understand the value and importance of press freedom. And the ethnic press and media play an essential role in expressing different ideas and perspectives. This is especially relevant in Ontario, with many of our diverse communities. You're a significant voice in our society. You are respected and valued for your source of information. You act as a bridge for various ethnocultural and multilingual groups. And our newcomers rely on you to guide them between their new lives in Ontario and their former homeland. You help integrate newcomers into Canadian life. As a first-generation Canadian, I have lived the immigrant experience. I know firsthand the challenges that newcomers face: learning a new language, finding a job, finding a good place to live. Those things that we need to ensure that we have a stable and secure life for our families. And as Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, I welcome your input to ensure that we together bring forward the perspectives of our diverse communities. And I'm committed to finding better ways to help all of us find work for our hardworking newcomers to ensure that they too achieve success. In Ontario, we have long valued our diversity and the tremendous economic contributions of our newcomers. And now, more than ever, immigration is an economic imperative. Highly skilled newcomers are key to Ontario's future. In less than 5 years, immigrants will be responsible for all of Ontario's net labor growth. And they'll require post-secondary education and training. And with an aging society and low birth rate, we're facing labor and skill shortages that can only be filled by attracting the world's best and brightest. We're in a competition with other jurisdictions for markets and for talent. So it's critical that we help hardworking immigrants learn language skills, find jobs, and integrate into life in Ontario. In fact, that's the main work of my ministry. We also have to look at what our economy needs in the future. Ontario remains Canada's engine of growth, responsible for almost 40% of the country's economic output. And we remain the #1 destination for newcomers to Canada. We need to help bring people here who can increase Ontario's prosperity and continue to enrich our social makeup. However, the simple truth is that we don't have control over those that come here. I appreciate that Ottawa now recognizes the immigration system needs to improve, and I welcome that. However, I remain concerned that Ottawa is overhauling the immigration system without adequately consulting the provinces or taking into consideration or into account our individual immigration priorities. We believe it's time to chart our own course so that immigration works better for both Ontario and Canada. As many of you know, in early March, I announced that we're moving forward to develop Ontario's first immigration strategy. We've established an expert roundtable on immigration, which will help develop our strategy for immigration to best support Ontario's economic development and help Ontarians find jobs. My instructions to the roundtable members then was to encourage them to be bold and innovative with their recommendations. Thank you, Tom. Bear with me. And I'm pleased by the makeup of the expert roundtable. Members are eager and determined to make immigration work better for Ontario. And to inform the development of our immigration strategy, my parliamentary assistant, Teresa Peruzza, is also meeting with immigrant stakeholders and communities right across the province. She's consulting with employers, labor, newcomer settlement groups, municipal agencies, all whom are working with newcomers every day, and with some of you, to provide their valuable perspectives. Ms. Peruzzo will also share her findings with the Roundtable, and I'm confident that these findings, together with those recommendations by the Roundtable, will assist us in building an immigration strategy that meets the needs of Ontario. Our government believes that a strong immigration partnership with Ottawa and Ontario would lead to better results for newcomers, for Ontario, and for Canada. But we must work together and work harder to build a true partnership. All of us experience Ontario. We're a welcoming province. And I know how valuable our diverse communities are to Ontario, and newcomers are helping us become even stronger and even more prosperous, not only for Ontario, but for our country. So I need you to keep reporting and reflecting on that fact. Once again, I thank you for having all of us here today. I look forward to more talks going forward on these very important issues facing Ontario. Together, working together, we can and will build a much better province. I also would like at this point to call up my colleagues from the Legislative Assembly and present Tom with a certificate by the Premier acknowledging the National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada annual exhibition and congratulating you on this very memorable event.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you. June of last year, I was an international observer and I traveled to Turkey. And I went into the Kurdistan region in Van. And we had to go, there was a reporter that was traveling with us, and we ran a roadblock, if you want to call it as such. It was an area where you don't have to go through a police check. And the reporter was a local person, and we arrived, and they asked for passports and everything else. So passports were given. And I'm sure that Maria will agree with me. And as soon as they found out that the reporter was traveling with us, they took him out of the car. They said, "You can go, the reporter can't." And at which point I objected stringently, and I asked the authorities of the Turkish state, "Why are you keeping the reporter and you letting us proceed?" "Well, the reporter doesn't have to be with you." Now, what I've seen with my own eyes at the elections of one of the largest democracies in the world was certainly questionable. In the area where elections were to happen, at the end of the day at 5 o'clock, there was the water cannon, and there were police in gear, just in case anything will happen. So the reporter unfortunately ended up, I think, spending the night in the local jailhouse, and we met him the next day. So folks, to the reporters of the world, to you and every one of you that has come from different countries, I congratulate you, and I stand with you as you try to report freedom and you try to report the truth. Unfortunately, many countries, and I'm saying countries that are part of the G20, they don't realize that freedom of the press, freedom of religion, and human rights are fundamental principles that they must adhere to in order to call themselves a modern democracy. We must hold these countries accountable. We must ask these countries that if they want to continue being part of the G8 or the G20, and if they want to do business with us, and I mean do business with us, that they must adhere to three principles: freedom of the press, freedom of religion, and no human rights violations. We can't continue doing business with countries that do not respect human rights, fundamental human rights. And a person can't express himself freely. A reporter can't express him or herself freely, and there's no religious freedom. So I encourage you and I ask of you to continue writing. And I know this press corps, you are the most important press corps in the world, and especially right here in Canada, and especially right here in Toronto. As you report, so our mothers and our fathers and a lot of the newcomers that don't speak the language or are struggling with English are able to read and are able to convey through your papers their ideas and their thoughts. We had an opportunity to invite the Ethnic Press Corps to Ottawa recently. I think for some of you it was the first time that you came to the nation's capital and you had the opportunity to witness democracy. Well, I'm not sure, I don't want to be partisan here, but with this crowd, I'm not sure if democracy does exist. And I can go on and add what I need to add, and I can tell you about closure, and I can tell you about having secret meetings in committee, and they're not allowed to be, we got a year and plus of Mr. Harper. 365 days of Mr. Harper, God help us. But anyways, folks, I thank you for doing this. I thank you for letting Canada as well as the world know. And I especially thank you for coming to Canada and joining what is truly a multicultural experience. Multiculturalism in other parts of the world, people are saying it's dead, it's not working. Some people are even getting it out of their legislation. I believe in Holland or Netherlands, I can't remember the country, that they wanted to do away with it. Certainly Britain is starting to look and saying, do we need multiculturalism? Well, to those countries, I say the following. 40 years of multiculturalism. 30 years of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. That is the Canadian dream. That is what truly we have experienced, and that is truly what we have been able to succeed and accomplish altogether. So as I join you, and we celebrated the 40 years of multiculturalism in Canada, we just celebrated the 30 years of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. At least we Liberals did. Mr. Harper just issued a press release. It was important to him. Folks, thank you for making this country your home. I know for a fact that many of you had an opportunity to immigrate to other countries. My father, 45 years ago, 46 years ago, had an opportunity to immigrate to Australia. He had an opportunity to go to Germany and other countries. And every day, I thank him for choosing Canada. Every day, I thank him for allowing me to come to this country, to have my children, and for them to prosper in this country. The Canadian dream, they say that immigrants are failing after 1987 and are not able to catch up. Well, I got news for you. Whoever did that study, he hasn't talked to my constituents. I've got news for you. Whoever did that study hasn't talked to the immigrants that have come in the last 20 years in Toronto. You prospered, you've done well, and for that we thank you. And to Mr. Saras and the whole gang, we thank you for making us and allowing us to come to do this.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm wearing 3 hats. I am the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs, but I'm also the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and I'm the MPP for Don Valley West. And I have met many of you before, and I'm just so pleased to be able to be with you again. And thank you very much to the National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada for hosting this event and for celebrating the freedom of press, because it is such an important part of our democracy. And I'm pleased to be here with Deepika Tamarla and Reza Maridi, my colleagues. And I want to say a couple of things. I want to thank Thomas and all of his colleagues, because as all of you know, when organizations come together, there are always a few people who are the driving force and the heart. And I think we would all agree that Thomas is a driving force. And he, absolutely. And so thank you for profiling this issue and for making sure that we all pay attention. The other thing I want to say is that on a day like this, when we're thinking about an issue that is as important as this, I think it's true we need to, as Jim Karajan said, we need to celebrate Canada and celebrate the freedom of press here and celebrate our pluralism, which I think is such a gift to ourselves and to the world. But I just want to say we have to understand, and you understand this better than I, that freedom of the press, freedom of speech is a fragile thing. It is something that can be taken away. It is a right, but it is a right that can be quashed. And so we have to always pay attention to that and be vigilant and make sure that our politicians and our community leaders talk to the press, that we are available to you, that we share information in as honest and forthright a way as possible. And I would suggest that with the profusion of media the Twitter and the Facebook and all of the ways that we communicate, sifting through all of that and finding the truth and finding the important messages gets more and more complicated. It gets more and more complicated to teach our children how to sort out good information from not great information, the truth from the half-truth. And I know that truth is often a relative thing, but part of our job, politicians and the press, we have a contract together to try to get the message out, what the message is that we are doing, and for you to deliver that to the population. So you are a very important part of the democratic process, and it is fragile, these rights that we have. So thank you for promoting them. Thank you for working with us in partnership. It is extremely important that we continue to work together, because what we have here is unique, I think, in the world. I mean, obviously there are parts of what we have in other parts of the world, in other countries, but that unique blend of pluralism and democracy and freedom of the press and freedom of expression, I think, is modeled and very, 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 very special to this wonderful country that we live in. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your partnership.
Appreciation.
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here, and there's no doubt that journalism and the free press, as the speakers before me alluded to that, is one of the pillars of democracy. We are so blessed to be Canadians, to live in Canada, where journalism and the journalists are free. This is not the case in very many countries. I want to thank Tom Saras for the beautiful remark he made in the beginning of this program, and he outlined the situation, the status of journalism in many countries around the world. That was very educational, Tom, and thank you for making that research and informing us and educating us, all of us, about the status of journalists and journalism around the world. As you may notice, in my homeland, Iran, there are over 40 journalists in prison, and many more journalists have been killed in my homeland, Iran, and that is very, very sad. So we are blessed to be Canadians. We are blessed where journalism is really true pillars of democracy. I am personally so proud of you. I am so proud of journalists. I have enormous respect for journalists. Being a former academic myself, I know very well that how important to be free to express your feelings, how important is to be free to express your thinking, your thoughts. And again, as I said, we are so blessed to be Canadians where we can do that. In many other parts of the world, people cannot speak to their minds. On the other note, I would like to thank all of you. Why? For a simple reason, that in the GTA in particular, maybe more than 50% of people here, they read both mainstream papers and also the local, their own ethnic papers. And one of those people is me. I read at least 4 Iranian papers every week, in addition to Toronto Star and the Globe and Mail, which I read every day. So you are doing a great job, you are doing a great service to our beautiful country, Canada, our wonderful province of Ontario, and our beautiful GTA. So I thank you, all of you, from the bottom of my heart for the excellent job you have been doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Reza Moreno. I would like to kindly request Ms. Deepika Dharmela, MPP, to share her remarks with us quickly. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Tom. One of the challenges of being among the later speakers is everything that's worth saying has already been said, so I'm going to keep this short. Let me just begin by saying that as a former member of the ethnic press, how proud I am to be here this evening, because I know some of the best journalists in the world are right here in this room. And I know this because I've worked with many of you. I know your personal stories. Many of you have worked at some of the largest publications in your home countries. You have produced A-level journalism in those countries, and you bring that experience here. So thank you so much for doing that. Just two little things that I want to share. One is that I was reading that today there are 250 publications represented here in 60 languages. And I have to wonder, if we were to add up the subscription of each of these papers right here in the Toronto, would it not rival, if not exceed, that of the Toronto Star? And that's why I'm waiting for the day we stop saying ethnic press and just start saying the Toronto Press. Thank you so much, and I wish you well.
It's fairly short. Thank you. I'm a city councillor in Toronto Danforth in Ward 29, and it is an honour and a pleasure to be a part of the official opening of the National Ethnic Press and Media Council exhibition here at City Hall, and I would like to thank all of you for coming out tonight. This exhibit is to commemorate the World Freedom of the Press Day, as has been mentioned, that it was declared by the United Nations, and it is a day for raising awareness of the importance of freedom of the press and to remind governments of their duty to respect and uphold the freedom of the right to freedom of expression. I beg your pardon. Freedom of the press and freedom of expression are the backbone of democracy. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of those who work in the media. Yours is a heavy burden, but a very important one. And I would also like to thank the National Ethnic Press and Media Council, and in particular Thomas, for organizing this exhibit. It is all too easy to take important things for granted. We do need to remind ourselves from time to time about our core democratic principles. They are the principles which previous generations fought so hard to incorporate into our government, our laws, and our day-to-day life. Last fall, I had the honor and the privilege of speaking at the Easter of Remembrance Day ceremony, and it was a time to honor those who gave so much for the cause of freedom and democracy. And tonight we gather to cherish that memory by continuing to be vigilant in the cause of freedom, freedom of the press, and freedom of expression. Thank you very much.
Well, it was a long time ago when I first came to Toronto City Hall as the councillor for Ward 7, which was the area around Parliament Street. Even though it was a long time, there were some people here waiting for me when I came, and one of them was Tom Saras. And so it's so wonderful to see in the intervening 20+ years the remarkable growth of your organization. And while the organization is important, it's the weekly or monthly or daily stories in your newspapers that are much more important. For many people have spoken about this, your publications are a lifeline for many people. People who have left their home and often their families, and need to keep in touch with what's happening there, but also help them to make the connections here in Ontario. You make that possible. And so, as a number of speakers have said, we all, as Canadians, owe you a great debt of thanks, a great amount of thanks for the work you do, the tough work you do. I know you work long, long hours, and you're out there often with a very small staff doing many of the jobs. But because you value the voice of a free press, you do all those jobs. And so you help to make newcomers into Canadians. Canadians who know their roots, as well as are making new roots here in this country. So from my time here at City Hall, my 12 years as a city councillor and then mayor, I know how important your work is. Now, as the Chief Commissioner of the Ontario Human Rights Commission, I also know how important your work is and how important freedom of speech and expression are. Too often when we think of human rights, we think of them somewhere else. Too many Canadians don't think of human rights as an issue that has much to do with their life here until somebody tramples on them or gets in the way. Minister Wynne talked about how fragile freedom of speech is and how we have to, all of us, embrace it and protect it. We need to do the same with all of our human rights. Yes, we have protections written in a law, the Ontario Human Rights Code, which celebrates its 50th anniversary this year. But we need to always protect it. And you probably more than many Canadians understand the importance of human rights, because many of you have come from homes where human rights were not available. And I know in your regular publications you raise human rights issues, and that's important. So today we're here to recognize a day and send a message out to people all around the world that human rights and freedom of expression is essential. So that message goes out, and the Human Rights Commission is pleased and privileged to join you here today to send out that message, and privileged to work every day with you to make sure that human rights are a lived reality here in Ontario for all Ontarians, wherever they've come from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As Zsa Zsa Gabor said to her first, second, and fourth husband, I won't keep you long, and I do promise I won't keep you long. But in the spirit of the great diversity that's here, I'd like to extend a hearty assalamu alaikum, shalom, namaste, vanakum, privet, konnichiwa, merhaba, sat sri akal, nehoma, ni hao, amidafa, salam, bonjour, buongiorno, guten tag to each and every one of you that are gathered here today. I do want to start with a quick shout out to my friends from Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago on their 50th anniversary of an independent nation. And I want to thank President Tom Saras and my good friend Vice President Ned Blair and all of the members of the National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada for so kindly inviting me here today for their, and acknowledging the groundbreaking work that they're doing, not just in this city and not just in this province, but all across this country. As Minister Wynne and others have said, as Canadians, we have so much to be thankful for. Our democratic form of government, our excellent healthcare system and education systems, our abundant natural resources, and especially our rich diversity are envied. I know from travels across the world that people envy each and every day, and we take so many of these for granted. And as has been said as well, when we're deprived of any of these and deprived of anything like freedom of the press, then we have much to be concerned about. Canada continues to be an incredible, welcoming nation, some 250,000 or so immigrants a year, and the ethnic media plays an important role in the lives of those that have chosen Canada as their new homeland, but who also want to maintain a contact with their birthplace, and to the many others that have chosen Canada as their homeland as well. The ethnic media don't just report on what's happening in the community. I can say from 37 years as a police officer and 8 years as the chief of one of the most diverse communities or regions anywhere in Canada, they actually help build community, and I have to acknowledge that. And as good as the mainstream media are here in Canada, in reality it's the ethnic media that provides the keener insights that are needed for us to fully understand many of the issues that are playing out in our communities, many of the issues that are influenced by events happening all across this world. So I want to thank all of you for the important role that you play in making Canada a safer, a better, and a more welcoming country. Spatsiba, Tashkar, Megwich, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
see this place.